Okay, perfect. Poly Diva, thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm really looking forward to talking about Hawaiian culture. It's been something that I've been fascinated with since I was a kid. This is gonna maybe a bit off. I don't know if you've heard the movie, but when I was a kid, my favorite movie was Surf's Up. It's about penguins surfing in Hawaii, and ever since then, I just became obsessed with Hawaiian culture. I play music, so I play slap key guitar. I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit of a backstory. Is there a creation story in Hawaii? Is there a story about how the civilization came to be?
So we have a few stories. So of course, people know that we are descended from the first voyagers, right, that came here to Hawaii. However, and that's just like the scientific, and it is shown there is evidence of that. But we do have our own creation stories where all things were created in Hawaii. So the first one is that we are from um Wakia is Father Sky, and Papa Hanaumoku is Mother Earth, basically. And they had many children together. Um, One of their children was Ho'ohokukalani, which was the holder of stars. And it was a daughter. And Wakia was so infatuated with his daughter that he basically snuck and ended up making her his partner. And so we are actually the first Hawaiian is descended from that union of father and daughter. Um, Another story we have is the Kumulipo, which is um, it's like there's like 100 lines in this chant, and it talks about the creation where first it was dark and then there was light, which it talks about how um the things that swam in the sea came first, and then the things that crawled, and then the things that so it's basically almost kind of like evolution, but there's a whole chant that we have about it.
Um, Hawaii has such a connection with the ocean, obviously, because it's like an island, but and obviously has a connection with fish and fishing and I know quite a few songs. I've learned them. I've learned I believe Aloha Ka Manini, which is about Hail to the Fishes, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um so that's that connection because it was a maritime culture or what and are there many worship songs around the sea?
Yeah. Because the sea is a pathway. It's not necessarily a boundary for all Pacific Islanders. We use it to connect to each other, and that's why Moana is quite beautiful. Some Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders don't like the Disney fantasization of it. However, it is quite accurate in the feeling of, when this last Moana 2 was kind of cool because that's exactly how our ancestors would have felt. It's a pathway. You meet at this one island. It's a pathway that leads to these other islands. It's just a roadway. It's what connects all of us. We very much revere the ocean. We have our god of the sea is Kanaloa. However, we know that without life, without fresh water, you cannot have life, living things. So our most revered god, I would say, would be Kane, which is the god of light and fresh water, and then Ku, because we're very much warriors, we're fighters. Um, Ku is Kukailimoku, or Ku is our god of war. But then we also have so we have four main gods, and that kind of tells you the things that we hold dear, that we hold most important. Kanaloa, god of the ocean. Kane, god of light and fresh water. Lono, god of agriculture. And Ku, god of war. Those four things are very important in our society.
Being from Ireland, we play rugby here and we have a I mean we play against the All Blacks and we play against Fiji. And
Mhm.
can you tell me what, if you know, or what connection there is between the cultures and what the overlap is and what the differences are?
So we all came from Fiji at some
Right.
point. We are all descended. The first voyagers came from Fiji, and Fiji is that point where we became Polynesians, because Fijians are considered Melanesian, not Polynesian. And how it's differentiated is because of pottery. So pottery and the use of pottery stops in Fiji, and it's nowhere else in the Pacific. So like Melanesia and Micronesia have like clay and pottery stuff, and then all of a sudden it stops. And all the Polynesians, we don't have pottery.
Wow.
That is how it just, I guess there wasn't the materials to make it at that point, not really sure, but that's like the evolution of how we came to be. Maori, however, Maori are the babies of Polynesia. So Aotearoa has only been the first to go there. The first Polynesians came from all the other islands and went down, and they have this. So Maori have only been in existence for about 800 years. Whereas Hawaii were like 2,000 years. And then like Tonga and stuff like that, 10,000. Tonga, Samoa.
Yeah, I know them all from rugby. That's how I know them.
Yeah. And so we all started though from Fiji and then branched out to Tonga, Samoa, from Samoa to Society Islands, French Polynesia, to Aotearoa, Rapa Nui, and to Hawaii.
Do
Yeah.
you have is there a boat, like a kind of standard or traditional boat that you make in Hawaii that would have been used for generations?
Yes, even though they're wood, so we don't really have the ones that our ancestors used because of how they were made. Very simple, But yeah, we do have like Hokulea is a world famous va'a. That is made out of fiberglass, however. It's funny you asked that because my grandfather is one of the last Hawaiian canoe builders.
Wow.
So we still build canoes, my family does at least. And there are a few other families, and it's very similar to what you see in Moana. The one that she has, her little one, is very similar to Hawaiian. However, the bigger ones that you see in Moana, and that's just because it's an easy thing that you can look up.
Yeah.
Those ones are more from other islands, which is why I always argue with people that Moana is not necessarily Hawaiian, because there's a lot of things that I see, and then the first thing I notice is their canoes that they made. The canoes would not be Hawaiian canoes because of the style, where there's two different layers of wood. We would use one big hull. There's also some stripping that is we have other Polynesians that would do that style. So you can actually tell by our va'a what culture we come from. And even though we're all Pacific Islanders, we've been apart for thousands of years, where we have developed our own culture and traditions. However, our language is quite similar to each other. We can talk to each other.
Wow. How come you're this, I mean, I know Polynesian islands mainly, as I said, by rugby, and how come it never seemed to spread to Hawaii? Was that just due to,
No, because like Hawaii has American team.
of course. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it is they're their own countries.
yeah.
Fiji, Aotearoa, they're their own countries. We actually are our own country, and we're illegally occupied. Um, However, we're a 50th state, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just it's fascinating to me how the it does mesh. My brain doesn't really quite get it because there is obviously the US,
Mhm.
um well, it part of the US,
Like, how
whatever.
did you guys break away from like England? Or like maybe the feelings that you guys might have. I'm not really sure. I only know based on like movies,
Yeah.
but um would be our feeling towards the US.
Yeah, we had a very, I feel like our proximity to the US, or not the US, the UK, made our relationship a bit different. I mean, I can never get over how far away Hawaii is from mainland US. So it's like we in Ireland there was a war for independence
Yeah.
in the early 20th century, so 1916 it started all the way up to 1921. Um, and then and then
That's quite recent. That's like
yeah,
100 years.
no, it's very recent. And then we had um then Northern Ireland remained in the UK, and then there was the troubles that went on throughout most of the 20th century. But and then we only actually had full independence, I think, in 1940, in 41, I think. I could be getting that wrong. But our relationship with Britain is still, we still have a pretty, we trade a lot with them. It's a very strong relationship now. But I just can't, when I see Hawaii and then I see the US, it's like, I don't know
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it's so different because of the
And
geography.
England and Japan offered to fight America for us.
Whoa.
They offered our queen. They told her, and people don't realize our connection to England, which is why we have, I don't know if you can see this here, the Hawaiian
Oh yeah.
flag. We have the Union Jack because of how close we were. And even our kings were Queen Victoria's godchildren.
Okay. Yeah, because
So
I know Fiji has a strong relationship, and they even still like very devoutly in some places worship the royal family as well.
yes, and Maori are still under the crown. You know what I mean? But it's very interesting how the crown still allowed, not allowed, I don't know if that's the right word, but they're still independent countries, even though they're all under the crown, which is what Hawaii probably would have been if we had, you know, but they actually told our queen, fight for your country, will help you. And our queen didn't want the bloodshed. So, yeah. So that's also like, and people see our Hawaiian bracelets and they're like, "Oh, the Hawaiian bracelets," but these are English. You find them in the store, in the jewelry stores still in London and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that, and a lot of Hawaiians don't realize that we took a lot of fashion and stuff from England and a lot of trends and stuff. But yeah, there were many of us. So like there was people will tell you that we voted to become a state, but we didn't. We weren't allowed to vote. Um, they will tell you in the American history books, it says out of 150,000 voters, 145,000 voted, and it was a landslide vote. But what they don't mention is that there were 600,000 people in population in Hawaii during that time. What happened to the other 450,000 people? One, they couldn't vote if you were not an American national, because some Hawaiians started like going into the military and doing all this stuff. So there were some Hawaiians that but they didn't realize that they were giving up their country. Basically, it was sneaky. Minorities were not allowed to vote. If you're Asian, if you're a person of color, you were not allowed to vote. It was only American citizens that were allowed to vote. So if 450,000 people had no say, you know.
And when was Britain's involvement in Hawaii? When did that start? Like around what
Oh, that
century?
started in 1819.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, no, 1758. It really started in 1758 when Captain James Cook came to Hawaii. And, he came twice. The first time he left, second time he came back, they didn't behave. And it is the Hawaiians that unalived him. We celebrate Valentine's Day. The rest of the world celebrates Valentine's Day, but we call it Kill Cook Day. So
Oh.
which is it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, but but that is when the involvement started. However, England did help supply um, cannons and muskets here in 1809 is when we became one. So here you can see muskets, and Kamehameha Paea was able to take over all of Hawaii. He's the first mo'i to rule all islands. No one else had ever done that because we were kind of tribal. We were, the best way I can think of is like the feudal system, kind of like that, but not. It is, but it isn't. But yeah.
And then when did the U.S. involvement properly begin?
US was a little bit around that time too. I would say more so though, when they became involved would be in 1843 when we became the first non-European country to be recognized as a country. 1843, Hawaii is the first non-European independent state before China, before Japan, before all these other countries even popped off. It was Hawaii. And we had consulates all over the world. We had treaties with 175 different countries during that time. We were almost like Switzerland.
Wow.
So in 1843 is when we got recognition, and it's signed by America, UK, and France. They were the first three to sign. It's the Anglo-Saxon treaty, basically.
That's quite
And
an
so,
interesting like diversion from, because I know it was you saying Fiji and Tonga and Samoa and New Zealand were all kind of, they're the Commonwealth. I think they're still the Commonwealth. I don't
they're
know.
still in the Commonwealth.
So they were still operating as kind of like dominions, maybe it's the correct
Yeah.
word. But that's fascinating that Hawaii was completely its own country.
Hawaii is the first non-European country to have recognition as a country besides America. Well, America was like colonies and then they started growing, but like we had recognition as a country before America did, before what America is today.
And did the people on the islands experience any difficulties in terms of, I'm a zoologist, so I studied zoology as well as
Oh,
music. So did they have introduction of species from the people living
yeah,
there
we
yet?
didn't have mosquitoes.
Okay.
We didn't have centipedes. We didn't have rats, cats. Um, Hawaii has the most, how do I say that? They have the most extinct in the world, like the most creatures and plants that have gone extinct out of
Yeah,
any place in the world.
that's shocking. That's awful.
It's quite sad. 70% of our birds are gone, of our
Yeah.
native birds.
I know that rats mainly do the most damage because they eat the eggs.
Rats and mongoose. And what's
Yeah.
crazy is they have the rats came on the ships, right? And then they brought in the mongoose to take care of the rats, but not realizing or that rats are up at night and mongoose aren't. You know, like and now people do bring in snakes right now. But no, we don't really have snakes here in Hawaii. We do have like a venomous sea snake apparently, but none of us have ever like there was something on the news. Someone found one on the beach, but I've never seen one, and no one that I've ever known has ever seen one when we're swimming. You know, it's one of the most venomous snakes too, but like none of us have ever seen one. Um, and then we have like a blind snake. It's more like a worm, like a scaly worm. It doesn't, it's really little and it's a worm. But what I was gonna say too is now we have CRB. So people are not sharing this, but all of our coconut trees are dying. And CRB is the coconut rhinoceros beetle. It came in on Home Depot mulch. And now you'll see, and now I don't have any on my property, thank goodness, but you can tell, and it looks like somebody trimmed the trees, but like all of the coconut trees are like angled, and that's from the beetle eating it. So you'll know that there's infestation when you see that on the trees, and if you ever drive on Oahu, you will see they are eating them, and now they're starting to eat our banana and our taro, which is our other crops. So, you know, this is a really big issue, and a lot of people are not taking it seriously, and they've spent billions of dollars on rails and like public transportation and all these other dumb things that aren't necessary. And our island is dying. our islands, there's 132 islands actually, 8 main islands, 7 islands, or 6 islands that you can visit. But our islands are dying. They look sick.
And is there a problem with obesity in Hawaii? Like, are the people
There's only a
also?
problem because they had us get off sustainability. We were sustainable. We could feed millions of people. When Captain Cook came here, he predicted, because they had people just like going all over the place and whatnot. And according to their records, they predicted about 1 million people living in Hawaii during that time. In the early 1900s, there was only about 35,000 left. Or in the mid 1800s, there was 35,000 left of us. And it was very, we were basically dying. Measles, what is it? Like all of those sexually transmitted diseases, leprosy, all of those things. We didn't even have the common cold as well. Stuff like that just killed us. And so in Hawaii, we're known for doing really big, lavish first birthday parties. And it's not just to be extra, it's because it was a big deal when your baby made it to 1, because most of our babies didn't.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's shocking.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, what was the general sense of, is there anger towards this current state of
Yes.
things? Yes.
Yes. A lot of us don't consider ourselves American. Mind you, we have to have passports, we have to pay taxes, all the stuff, but it's all to an illegal government, you know. The things that America fights all these wars in the Middle East for is what they're doing here. And they've done it for 135 years now. So it's like, huh? You know, very contradicting a little bit. We only make up 10% of the population, Hawaiians. We've lost our cultural identity, our sense of self. We've lost our lands. There's a lot of anger. Mind you, for me, it's not towards, some people get very racist on it. For me, it's not a racist thing. For me, it's like, oh no, I'm okay with Americans. I just don't like your government. You know, like,
Hmm.
no, it's your boss, it's the president, it's the, whoever's in charge. They could give us our country back if they wanted to, if they really wanted to. And we're the only place in America that has all branches of military. They don't have that in the other states. They only have like some of them. They don't have, yeah, it's pretty wild.
I can imagine that it's pretty strategic to have
Yeah.
Hawaii
Yeah.
inside of a military
And
organization.
Pearl Harbor is very famous, right? The Battle of Pearl Harbor. But if you really think about it, they flew over homes, they flew over neighborhoods, they flew over other islands. They were instructed, and this is on record, they were instructed to only attack America, which is why they only hit the bases. So some people will be like, no, the Japanese attacked us. No, 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 they attacked you guys. They didn't attack Hawaii. And then when our queen died, Japan sent delegates because they still recognized her as the queen. So
Um,
it's all political.
what's what's the general consensus towards the future in a way? Like, what do people want going forward to change?
I can't speak for all Hawaiians, but I do know that majority of us just want to come home. Majority of them want to be in Hawaii. Majority of them are displaced and they have no choice but to live in America because there's nowhere else for them to live here. They just put out a report that a average family of four needs to make 248,000 USD in order to, on average, to live here.
Whoa.
Even though I'm a content creator, you know,
Yeah.
I have 7 children. And even it's month to month, you
Yeah.
know? And mind you, it's easy to make money. You can always make money, but it's hard trying to juggle and balance my obligations, or kuleana is what we say, our kuleana, our responsibilities as a indigenous person here in my homeland, as well as making sure that my children grow up to be good people, at the same time making sure that I'm providing for them the security to be able to remain here should they want to. A lot of people like to criticize my content and whatnot, but none of them have 25 acres. And I worked really hard to have what I have. And 25 acres for a Hawaiian is a huge deal. And not that I'm bragging about it, but I've worked really, really hard, and I'm willing to do, you know, whatever it takes to make sure that my children don't have to make that choice. And I think also we've just been put back. It's systemic generational trauma that some people just don't come out of it. We make up 50% of the houseless population here in Hawaii. Um, Crystal methamphetamine is a huge issue here in Hawaii. Most of us grew up in the foster care system or being raised by other family members. Most of us, SA in the family, physical abuse. Um, it, our people are really, really struggling. Now, you can either be a victim to it, or you can be victorious over it. So I think too, a lot of us just don't have that mindset, which is really sad, but it's really hard when there's so much against us. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Barely.
And I mean, it sounds almost slightly similar to like the situation a lot of the Native American communities
Yeah.
find themselves in. I mean, huge drug addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
you
very
build it.
same.
Yeah.
Except we don't have reservations like that. Like we don't have um we have a version of it. However, oh my darling. However, you need to be 50% Hawaiian in order to live on those parts of land that have been set aside for Hawaiians. Now, let me tell you, there are only 1 million Hawaiians now. Now we've hit 1 million. Okay. It took us over 100 years, 150 years to finally reach 1 million people in population again. We now have 1 million Hawaiians in existence. However, only 30,000 of them meet the blood quantum requirements to have this land. And the land that they have set aside, I mean, I understand it's the only thing that they could do, but you only pay $1 a year for taxes, which is huge. However, they made that deal in exchange for Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't seem right. And also as well, I can imagine that Hawaiian land is incredibly lucrative. Like, I mean, it must be in terms of tourism and the kind of the popularity it has, how famous it is. That land must be fought over or deeply wanted by many people.
Yeah.
So it's I
The
can't imagine.
military, the military runs about 25% of the landmass here in Hawaii. I would say though, majority of the people that own land here are Asian,
Okay.
Japanese primarily, and Chinese. Japanese the most.
And is it difficult to keep um kind of cohesion or a sense of Hawaii if you have so many different sort of interests in the region?
Yes and no. Um, I wish Hawaiians had that mindset, how the Asians are, where they've invested. So the reason why too a lot of Asians own property here is because during the plantation stages and also during Pearl Harbor, they even though they were put into internment camps here in Hawaii. There were internment camps for all Japanese. It didn't matter that they had been living here for generations. It didn't matter that they didn't have connections to Japan anymore, nothing. It was completely racial, okay? Um, but they all came together as a community, and you hear stories about this, how they all put in money and they would buy one house and it would go to a family, and then they'd all pitch in and buy another house and go to that family. But they did like a community investing thing, even though they all lost everything at one point, you know? And it's like, and now here they are, they own a lot of property and a lot of places and a lot of land and whatnot. And it's because of the steps that they took. And it's also because they realized the importance of owning land where Hawaiians didn't, that wasn't important to us back then.
But do you think that that's maybe potentially, very deeply ingrained in the culture there, that your connection with the land is almost not the
Yeah.
same way?
Yeah. Like we're stewards of the land. You know, the land owns us. We don't own it. You know, our job is to take care of it, not own it like that. You know, it was definitely different. So there's a story that my family has, and I grew up on allodial title land, which means that my ancestors were chiefs, were noble. Um, and so my grandmother was given land as her dowry because of who she was and who her ancestors were. Um, oh, sorry, can you see me? Where are you? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, there we go. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because of who my ancestors were. So I grew up on land that was signed and deeded by Kamehameha, by the ruler, um, because of our loyalty to the crown, you know? And there are a few families that grew up like that, but not everybody was elite. There's a lot of people that were, what's the word? Not peasants, but I guess farmer, you know, more that class.
And what about
Sorry.
the teaching of Hawaiian culture, and do people still have the same understanding of it, or is the connection being lost?
No, we've had a revitalization. Sorry, that's my baby. Let me give her a bottle. We have
Okay.
had a revitalization of our culture. It wasn't ever fully gone. There were still people that practice it, like, which is why my grandfather is a canoe builder and things like that. So one moment, my darling, let me find your bottle. But there were people that were still practicing under, underground and still upholding those things. It was never lost completely. However, we were like, our language was banned at one point. My darling. It only took one generation to completely erase our language. Well, kind of. Our great grandparents spoke it, and if you were on the outer islands, you most likely spoke it. But on the main island, which is Oahu, um, is where a lot of that gentrification happened.
And is the language is it kind of semi-alive? Like, I know it's used. There's still remnants of it. Like, it's still being used,
We
obviously.
still
But
use it. So
yeah,
on my island, we have the most Hawaiian speakers. My children attend school. So in 1978, our language was no longer banned. And that's so recent, right? 1978.
yeah,
Just
it's
like,
very
yeah.
recent.
Um, and so then they started making schools. So my children attended schools that now they're in a hybrid school. It's not necessarily American. They don't learn anything American in there. They speak both languages, Hawaiian and English. However, my two older kids, their first education was in schools that didn't speak English
Okay.
at all. It's not
Yeah.
allowed. So, my two older kids speak Hawaiian.
Similar.
My
We have Irish here. It's a very similar situation with our native language. Like,
yeah,
not many people speak it, but and then there's schools where it's spoke.
yeah.
Only you speak
There
Irish.
there's about, I think they said there's like 5,000 people that speak it fluently now.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And our ATMs and stuff are in Hawaiian. Like
And
you
is
have
and
Hawaiian option.
is it was it originally an oral, like handed down language, or was
Oral,
there
yeah.
always
We didn't
okay?
write. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the missionaries that turned it into a written language.
And so it's like a mixed date. I mean, it's so is that version kind of like almost English, and they tried to make it use the
No, there's
sounds,
some
not
words, but they're it's pretty to because we chant a lot. So
okay.
like they didn't really change though, like there's still some words like TV obviously is a made up. It our the word is kiwi, sounds like TV. Like those kind of words are made
Yeah.
up. Um and like radio is lekio, like, but all of our original words, like some people, I don't know if you've seen some of the content, but you see the word haole a lot.
Okay.
And haole gets, like, people think it's derogatory, but it's just our word for like foreigner. Like
Okay.
any foreigner, though people will like take it into like a racial context. It's just anyone that's not from here. Any, you could be any color and you could be haole if you're not from here,
Okay.
you
Interesting.
know? And haole is what we called Captain Cook. Like when we first saw him, it was like, oh, haole.
Sounds like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, right. And so and there's many different variations onto what that meant. Like some Hawaiians say that it's because they shook hands, they didn't ha, you know, because we put our faces together, right? And we breathe in each other. Basically, that's what we're doing. Um, they didn't do that. So ha is like breath and ole means no. So like it means like no breath. So that's one story that some people hear, and other people were just like, well, no, it just also means foreign, like just different, not of here.
Can I ask you about the development of the culture musically, and then also in terms of
Oh
its
yeah.
sort of dance and as you were saying earlier about the warrior aspect? I find that fascinating across lots of different, like as you were talking about Fiji and obviously the Maoris um and then Hawaii. One of the I love Hawaiian music is like when I hear I don't know if you know Gabi Pahuni, I think his name is. I
Oh,
think
Pahinui.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um I just love his music, and I'm wondering how do you know that how that sort of developed? I mean, they there's the guitar, I know it now, and then there's the kind of slack key guitar
The
and
slack key, it's just how they played it. They played it like the Panyo, like the Spaniards played it. It was just a guitar on the lap.
okay,
And then what happened? There's like a story on how it was created where like something fell on it and it made a sound and they started like, it was like by chance where the slack key came in.
okay.
Um, but we didn't have any strumming instruments originally, traditionally. It was just drums and percussions. And
And is that
hula,
yes,
oh no, sorry. And then hula was essentially um mostly male did it, not women. And it was for, and if you've ever seen like traditional hula, if you look at Merry Monarch is what we call it. If you see traditional hula, it's very you need to be very physical for hula, but we're trained like that, and it's a discipline for us, but it's because it trained us for war, to be strong, to be agile. It was, yeah, it's very interesting.
and how did the singing come about? I mean, I've seen a video. I don't know if you've seen it. It's an amazing video from, I think it's from Fiji, of um two fathers, I think, singing in the forest. It could be Papua New Guinea now. I think it might be Papua New Guinea, but they're singing and then their kids are then singing after. It's a very high kind of pitched singing, and I also noticed it a lot in some of the Hawaiian music that you have even males.
Falsetto.
Yeah.
Falsetto, that just came from we saw yodelers.
Oh,
We saw yodelers in like the 1800s or maybe even the 1900s at the World Fair. We didn't sing like that prior.
wow.
It was like one of our first times at the World Fair, and Hawaiians heard people yodeling and was like, "What is that?" And so only in Hawaii, I mean, where it's like a trend. It was a trend that picked up. So
Wow.
now it's a part of Hawaiian music, but traditionally it was not.
That's fascinating. That's so interesting
We
because
chanted. We chanted very monotone, very like very just like not not harmonies like that.
wow. So yeah, because I presume if you just have drums and then if it's kind of got to do with war and fighting, chanting and
Yeah.
low kind of repetitive
Yeah.
tones would get you much more in a fighting spirit than some sort of
Yeah.
beautiful melody that would maybe make you not want to
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very just like um yeah, it was just chanting. We didn't have notes or stuff like that.
That's so interesting. And on your tattoos, do you is there like a rite of passage, or is there the tattoos have a particular meaning,
Yes.
or it's just
They
yes?
should. They should. Um I have my face tattooed. Mind you, there's some girls that have some motifs on their chins and whatnot. Mine's is pretty bold. Mine's is really dark compared to other girls. There's a handful of us that have our faces marked here, but some of theirs is like really light. Like you don't really, it's very light lines. Um, but mine's is specific, and I don't know why they have theirs, but why I have mine is because I'm ancestrally connected to a specific district and place in Hawaii where the women were known for marking their faces.
Uh-huh.
So that's why we're all like tribes. Even though we're all in Hawaii, depending on where you lived and what village you were in and whatnot, what kauhale or ahupua'a is what we say. For like, I guess we separate our districts, or like, like how there's um land divisions. It's always mountains to the ocean. It makes sense. We don't just get one parcel of land that's just in the middle of nothing. No, all land divisions should be mountain to the ocean. That way you can sustain yourself. Because you can't sustain yourself if there's only the mountain and then you still need like fishing stuff and. So, but anywho, so everybody was different. Everyone did things differently, had different verbiage for things. Um, Protocol was different, depending on your island. Even now today, you can tell what island you're from just by the way you speak Hawaiian.
Oh, so it's like yeah, regional accents
Yes.
and variation in how you say
Yep.
words.
Yep.
Wow, that's fascinating. And the so do you have a equivalent? You obviously have like a war dance. Do you have is there a specific one for a
We
region?
do, but not the ones I've seen here on trending.
Okay.
I don't know. I see them doing this thing that looks like a haka, but we didn't have stuff like that.
Okay.
So and I know them too. One of them's a content creator. I don't know. And they said it's called ha'a. Ha'a just means to dance, any
Okay.
dance. So it's like, I feel like hula kahiko is what we would call it, or olapa. I feel like our hula is just as manly, and it can be, it's just that they don't, yeah. because it looks like haka to me. Like when they do it, I'm like, you're trying to do haka.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about
It's
because obviously
confusing.
Haka is very well, it's very famous, but I know that each island then in that region has its own variation of it, and I was yeah, like it's uh quite different when you see it. Um, so I was wondering how the sort of the Hawaiian Islanders not develop such a strong dance in that regard in
We
terms of
do,
war
but
dance. No.
it's still kahiko. It's still like if you look up kahiko, like men kahiko, which is KAHIKO, you'll see there's dances that are super like strong and masculine, but I don't know, people really like the haka.
Well, I think yeah, it's very famous, and I think I mean anytime Ireland play New Zealand, it really is quite terrifying when you
Yeah.
see it. Like it's a very intimidating display.
My favorite rugby commercial is the one with Scotland and the All Blacks. Do you remember that
Or
one?
I don't know if I've seen that. No, I'm not sure.
Well, it's the All Blacks are doing haka, and it was like their World Cup thing or whatever it was. It was a long time ago, but and it was a commercial, so they're doing haka, and then all the and they're trying to intimidate Scotland, and Scotland's in their kilts. And then the Scottish, after they're done with the haka, they're like all in their poses and looking at Scotland, waiting for them to do something. And the Scottish team of Scotland lifts up their kilts, and the Maori guys are like it was. That's one of my favorite rugby commercials. Anyways, I was just thinking about it. It was just funny. It's hilarious. Yeah.
And so I can't remember what you said earlier. Is there between the languages? Is there similarities in terms of Maori or to Hawaiian? Is there?
Maori
Would
and
you be?
Hawaiian very same. Like
Yeah.
inu is the same word, which is drink. Moi is the same word. Most of our language is the same, and I can understand my husband's language. I think my husband just isn't. I don't know, but he can't understand mine as easily, but I can understand his.
That's a fact. And what is the like what's the distance, the kilometer distance between
Oh, it's a 9-10 hour flight.
that is absolutely crazy. I mean, that blows my mind.
That's like me going to like Tennessee or something.
And this is over like thousands of years with no airplanes, no form of like just island to
We
island.
that's why we all and that's why they can tell our languages are very similar, which is why we come from the same people.
I mean that is like it's hard to get your head around that that can actually take place and how they manage to even
Yeah.
stay
Like
connected.
Hawaiian, how are you? Pehea oi. Um, in Maori, so the key word is pehea. So we say pehea oi. In Maori, it's kete pehea koe. In Samoan, it's ofa pehea, pehea. Very, very same. You
Wow.
know, our simple words for things, everyday life are the same. Same thing for Samoan, Maori, and Hawaiian. Inu is inu. Drink is the same word. Moana is the same word for all Polynesians. All Polynesians have the word moana, which means ocean.
What about the thing I didn't ask you when we were talking about the nature was in terms of fish stocks, like what is the health of the ocean like in the region?
It depends. My island has really good fish, very
Okay.
healthy. Oahu, no. Mm-mm.
Is there lots of is there huge pollution in the area in terms
Yeah,
of yeah?
there's tons of pollution here, um, on the land and in the sea. You'll feel it. Like when people are taking videos and stuff of Waikiki, I'm disgusted. I would never swim in Waikiki. Most Hawaiians would never swim in Waikiki. We see the viral videos of people and we're like, ooh, because we know what good water feels like. And the water You can tell it feels like sunscreen and pee. It smells like it.
That's quite. I
Don't
mean, that's.
Finn, you ever come to Hawaii, don't go to Waikiki. You do not swim.
I'm 100% I am gonna come to Hawaii at some stage. I was yeah, planning on doing
Don't
it.
don't swim in the water, and tell your friends don't swim in that damn water. I would not even let my kids swim over there. Hell no. Go to the North Shore or the other side of the island, but even then, there's still some places that are like highly polluted. Just like Oahu, the North Shore or the west side is the best place for you to swim. Don't swim anywhere else because it's disgusting.
And what about the break, like the waters? Are they safe generally, or is there areas where it can get quite dangerous?
You know what? All of our water is dangerous. If you're not a good swimmer, so many people get trapped and lost or like, get swept out. And I'm like, why would you swim there if you're not like, it's an actual ocean? It is alive. It is, because my husband's from New Zealand and he's more inland, he didn't grow up around the ocean because New Zealand, in comparison to us, the size of Auckland, which is their capital, is the size of my island. Like, it is huge. That's just one town, one city in New Zealand, right? So my husband grew more inland. He didn't grow up around ocean. So my husband knows that he won't take my kids to certain beaches if he knows that, like, no, because he didn't grow up a swimmer like I did. And we grew up, um, mind you, not all Hawaiians did grow up like this. I was just really lucky because of my grandparents, and who my family is. But we grew up on like open ocean and learning how to swim like that and tread water and take waves and get bombed, pounded by waves and learn how to get out of a current and out of a riptide and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of people do not. There's a lot of Hawaiians that don't even swim necessarily.
And is that a recent phenomenon? Like, obviously, that's developed more recently.
I think so. I think so. I'm like,
Well, I can't imagine it was not enough. It had to be a necessity up until recently that you knew how to be in the water.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but there were people that worked in the mountains and people that worked in the ocean. So, yeah. It was kind of, I guess it was kind of the same. I feel like it should be. Like my children, I never sent them to classes or anything like that. However, my grandparents sent me to classes. But I think my kids have been doing pretty okay.
Just to finish up on what I'd love you to tell, if you could, or if you think about it, what your favorite Hawaiian like myth or story is, one of the most beautiful one that you can think of, and maybe just recite it because I think that would be really nice.
There's a few. We have some beautiful stories. That's the thing, right? Is our ancestors would look at a phenomenon. We have chants about big battles and things like that between the gods. And that actually was the same time during this certain eruption or whatever it was. So we had all these phenomenons happening in nature, and our ancestors would connect a story to it. There are some really, really, really beautiful stories here in Hawaii. I'm trying to think what my favorite is. Um, 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 I would have to say this is probably the most famous, I guess. So it would be with Pele, which is our fire goddess, and her sister 𝒖𝒖𝒂 𝒂𝒌𝒂 𝒂𝒂𝒂. Mind you, there's a lot of 𝒖𝒖𝒂s. There's a lot of 𝒖𝒖𝒂s. All of her sisters were named. My daddy. Oh, watch out. I know. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Um, so Pele went into a deep sleep, and for us, your spirit can leave your body when you sleep. So her spirit traveled to um through the islands and whatnot, and she basically came to Kauai where she met Lohiau. And Lohiao was a chief. And anyways, they had this beautiful romance, and then she had to return to her body. So she returns to her body, and she tells her sister, 𝒖𝒂𝒌𝒂 𝒂𝒌𝒂, go and get my man, basically. Go and get Lohiao for me. And there's this beautiful saga. It's probably one of the, it's almost like the Odyssey. It's kind of like the Odyssey, and that's why I like it, because there's so many stories within the story. But it's basically about 𝒖𝒂𝒌𝒂 𝒂𝒌𝒂 traveling all through the islands, because she can't travel in her spirit like her sister, who is a goddess, can necessarily, who's like a big time goddess, can. Um, but she ends up going through these battles, overcoming all these obstacles, and we have a lot of chants that came from this saga, a lot of hula that came out of this saga. Um, and she finds Lohiao, and he is dead when she comes, and she's like, oh crap, I have to, like, I'm supposed to deliver him to my sister. What is happening? So unbeknownst to Pele, because you know they didn't have text, right? No phone, no phones. Unbeknownst to Pele, Pele's like, what is taking so long? But she had to like go through hoops, get his spirit back from the underworld, all the things to bring this man back to life. And she took so long that Pele thought that she stole him from her. So she ended up like destroying everything that her sister loved. It's a long sad story. But the reason why I like it is just that there's so many little tales in between it, and so many different characters and other goddesses and gods that are like in it, and people and chiefs, and yeah, it's quite cool. We have our own legends and myths, and we are our own culture, and we have our own cultural identity, and people just think that, you know, we're just a vacation destination, but we're so much more than that.
No, I find it. I mean, I find it fascinating. We have very similar thing here in Ireland in terms of our. Well, we used to anyway. Like very strong connection with uh, the land, and also like lots of mythology and stories about how the land was created. And I also find it fascinating, especially in Hawaii, when I read into it or I'm listening to music, because I'm a musician, so that's usually how
Yeah.
I listen to things, or um, just hearing about people's connection with the land. I mean, Hawaii seems to be so. To me, that's what I always think of. I always think of a deep interconnection with the ocean, and then like a deep respect for the nature that
Yeah.
provides, which I find quite beautiful.
It's the heart chakra of the world. It's one of the heart chakras, apparently, just because of energy. So if you ever land here, you feel it. Um, when you come to Hawaii, there's something magnetic about it. Like, you know how people are just like, oh, you know, they can travel and they enjoy and they miss being on their trip and stuff like that. No, I don't ever feel that. When I'm home, I'm like, oh, I love traveling, but there's nothing like being here in Hawaii and seeing our mountains and seeing that we have like the best nature. Like it's healing. Yeah.
Amazing. That's fantastic. I'll stop the recording. Okay.